everyone, my name's Kat, I write books and stuff, this is my YouTube channel. So welcome back to another video. This is the wrap up for June. If this is your first time on my channel, hello. Normally what I post is a wrap up of the things I have been reading, writing and watching over the previous month at the beginning of the month. Apologies that this video is going up a little bit late. I do have, I would say, good excuse. It's still an excuse. Anyway, let's crack on. So reading, writing and watching then. I'm going to start off with writing because, again, there wasn't a lot to really tell. I did do quite a bit of sort of developmental work and dipped in and out of my novel. I found it really difficult to kind of get my head back into my novel, especially with some of the disruption that I've had over the last couple of months. I am, however, now a bit more settled in it. Know where it's going. I basically had to re-outline it again because there were a couple of things that really weren't working and making the writing process really difficult. I kept kind of arriving at a point and then having to stop and figure out why it wasn't working. So that's happened a couple of times now with this novel. Clearly this one is going to be one of those ones with some pretty serious birthing pains, but we'll carry on because I believe in the story and really like the story. So yeah, hopefully I'll have a bit more to say for the wrap up for July. It is Camp Nanowrimo during July, which is a writing challenge. Basically you set your own goal for the month, but it's a bit like the kind of National Novel Writing Month thing that happens every November. Camp Nanowrimo is kind of like a bit more flexible, set your own goals, and what have you, and that happens every April and July. So we are in Camp Nanowrimo. My target for the month is to spend 31 hours, which is an average of an hour a day, on my novel. That should give me a really, really good amount of work. Now, the reason why I'm not counting words for this month is because I'm doing a rewrite, a redraft. What I'm finding is that I'm having to delete a lot of stuff or like reword it. So I spend a lot of time working on it, but actually come out with like minus words or not very many positive plus words or additional words. So rather than count words and then get really stressed about the fact I've been writing for an hour or working on it for an hour and actually I've lost 500 words because I've moved them or saved them for later to put back in or something, rather than do that, rather than get worked up about it, I'm counting hours instead. That works better for editing in general, but obviously sometimes redrafting is about the word count and sometimes it's about the hours you put in. So that's where we're up to with the writing. With the watching, again, this is going to be a very brief kind of summary because actually most of the watching that I've done over the month of June has been on YouTube. I've been just trying to catch up with lots of stuff that I haven't watched for a while and what have you. So I've been watching a lot of Carrie Hope Fletcher's channel on YouTube. She did a whole thing during May where she did May, Myself and I, which I loved. Lots of like a prompt for each day and then she did a video for each of those prompts. It was really cool. They were only short videos, so you know it was easy to slam through them. What else have I been watching? I've been watching a lot of I don't even know. I actually don't know. Bullet journal videos. I've been trying to catch up on everybody else's bullet journals because now that I've started doing my own bullet journal videos, I never seem to have the time to actually watch anyone else's. So I've been trying to catch up with that. And there's been a couple of other channels that I've been watching. TV-wise, the main thing that I have watched over the last month or over June was obviously Chernobyl finished, I think, the first week in June. Fantastic series. That last episode was stunningly good. How something can be so riveting when it's basically a one set, one room part of the story. I don't know, but it was absolutely incredible. I loved it. I thought the explanation for it was great. Like the explanation of what happened. The other thing that I watched in June was Big Little Lies. Season 2 started again, I think the week after Chernobyl finished. I absolutely loved the first series. I thought it was incredibly clever and having such a good cast and it was so well written. I actually loved it. However, the second series has not lit my fire. I've watched, I think, 2 or 3 episodes. I haven't really kind of got into it. like I expected to, which is so annoying because I was so looking forward to it. But I have this theory. The first series I pretty much binge watched it in like 2 days. So that's what I'm trying to do with the second series now. I'm letting a few episodes record, and then I'll watch them all in one go when I get like an afternoon or something to myself. So that's my plan. The cast is still incredible. The script is still incredible. It just doesn't have the same hook to it. So if you haven't watched it, the first series there was something that had happened, and right from the start you knew something had happened, but you didn't know what it was. Because there was lots of interviews with people in the town that knew these women. There were lots of interviews with them interspersed with what was happening or what had happened. And it was really building up to the climax. And I really feel like that's missing in this series. Like I say, I've only watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes anyway. And I'm holding off to kind of binge watch a whole bunch of them for the rest of the series. But yeah, it hasn't really done it for me so far. What I will say though is that Meryl Streep is amazing. She's absolutely crazy in this series, and I love her for it. And of course the other cast members are still incredible. They're all crazy too, by the way. It's basically a TV series about crazy women. But, you know, aren't we all a little bit nuts? So that's what I have been watching and writing during the month of June. So let's move on to what I have been reading. So you might remember, if you watched my May wrap-up, that at the end of May, I was listening to an audiobook and I hadn't quite finished it. That audiobook was Dreamer by Peter James. Dreamer is the story of a person called Sam. She has a kind of boogeyman from her past that she dreams about. And so the story is, you get the kind of initial sort of opening scene of it is when she's a child, and you know, she has regular dreams of this boogeyman, and she dreams of him and her parents die. And the gist of it is that whenever she dreams of this boogeyman, something bad happens. And she starts to dream about disasters and things that happen, and then they seem to be coming true. Now, I listened to this on audiobook, and what I'd say is I thought the narrator was fantastic. However, there was that kind of initial opening scene and a few other scenes where it was clearly supposed to be quite exciting, and the narrator to me sounded bored, which was a bit frustrating, to be honest. I could tell that the way it was written, because it was in short sentences and what have you, and it was quite snappy writing during those passages or during those scenes. It was supposed to be exciting, and I didn't feel excited. And I found that really frustrating, and particularly because that was how it started as well, it was even more frustrating. I did, however, really get into the book and thoroughly enjoyed it. I think by the time that I got to kind of 2/3 of the way through it, I was desperate for the ending, and I was like listening to it all the time because I was just so into it and I really wanted to know what happened. It is quite, there's quite a lot of kind of bumps and twists and turns in the story, and you know, things that happen to Sam and things that happen to her family and what have you, and there's kind of like there are a few sort of twists where you think it's going to go in one direction and it goes in a different direction, and I was really enjoying that. And then it got to the end, and boy howdy, talk about disappointing endings. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy the ending. I thought it was very non-committal. It didn't really give any closure to anything. It was all a bit kind of like, well, what the heck is this all about? You know, you kind of expect that Sam is having these dreams, and these dreams seem to be linked to reality somehow, or, you know, and there's a whole thing about, you know, is she controlling reality with these dreams, or are they premonitions and what have you? And actually the story didn't really give any answers to any of that. So it prompted a lot of questions as you go through the story, and explored the nature of dreams and what they mean to people and what they mean individually, what you can infer from dreams, and, you know, psychologically speaking, some of that was explored as well. But ultimately, it didn't actually give an explanation. Now, obviously, if you're talking about analysing your own dreams, it's a very kind of woolly subject, and there aren't any sort of hard and fast answers for, you know, if you have a dream about something and something then happens, you know, you're never going to get a hard and fast answer. However, this isn't reality, this is a book. It's a novel, and it's meant to be a kind of, you know, take you along for a ride and what have you. I'm not asking for every possible loose end to be tied up, but some of the loose ends being tied up would have been nice. It was a really good read, just to kind of sum up. It was a really good read, or a really good story. I did actually quite enjoy it. I was just a little bit disappointed by the ending. I think on Goodreads I gave it 3 stars. So it was kind of an average for me. It's not one of those that's kind of going to really stick in my mind, or that I would ever read again. But I did have a really good time with it, so there you go. Okay, the second book then that I read during the month of June was The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I have had this on my bookshelf for probably over a year, probably a couple of years actually. This is one of those things that is a book that is recommended for creative people. So it's kind of like, you know, if you're a writer, there are certain books that come up over and over and over again as recommendations for books that you should read. So one of them is On Writing by Stephen King, Save the Cat and Save the Cat Writes a Novel, both very often recommended. There's books like The Emotion Thesaurus, stuff like that. This is one of those books. This is one of those books that gets recommended a lot for writers. What I would say is, I hate this book. I didn't finish this book. There's some quite valuable advice in it, actually, as it happens. The kind of the basic principle of it is morning pages and artists' dates. So morning pages essentially is wake up in the morning, write 3 sides of paper, kind of stream of consciousness journaling. Now, if you watched my video about being blocked, I absolutely believe in stream of consciousness writing and journaling as a way to kind of get things out of your head and onto the page, and so that you can see what it is that's kind of niggling away in your mind. Because I think we're not always necessarily that aware of the things that go on inside our heads. Or if we are aware of them, it's not always easy to understand them. So putting something on paper is so important sometimes for understanding what's going on inside your head. Artist dates, the principle is basically that once a week, I think it is that it suggests, once a week that you go and do something fun, something that stimulates your creativity, something that you just want to do, and that you should do it alone. So that might be going to a gallery, going to a library, or it might be something like sitting and watching Netflix, or I guess. Basically, it's kind of like trying new things. So it's stuff that's kind of outside of your normal experience or outside of the things that you would normally do. Going and doing that once a week to stimulate your creativity. Now, those 2 things are really good suggestions, and they're very valuable. And I support anyone who is creative or who wants to be creative or more creative to try those things. Morning pages don't work for me. I hate being in my head. I use it as a tool when I need to, if there's something that's bothering me. And that might be kind of like, you know, like with my novel that I'm working on at the moment. As I said, I've had some issues with the kind of structure of it and the outline of it, and had to go back to basics with it a couple of times. And journaling, stream of consciousness writing, morning pages, whatever you want to call them, the stuff that this book suggests is very, very useful for that, because I can just stream of consciousness, scroll on paper, and I can see what is going on inside my head. So, like I say, completely support that, find it really useful. I use it as a tool. I hate doing it though, so doing it every morning for me is just boring. honestly. The inside of my head is not that interesting of a place, and literally it's just, I'm bored for like half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on the size of the paper. And you know, I don't have a lot of room in my schedule for doing that every morning, especially if I've got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get into work for 6. So morning pages don't work for me, but stream of consciousness journaling is a thing, and everyone should try it and use it as a tool. Artist dates, I completely agree with the principle of having a little bit of time to yourself and exploring new things and trying new things and having new experiences. I don't believe you have to do it on your own, and that brings me on to my biggest problem with this book, and it is the tone of this book. So basically, the implication in the tone throughout the book is that people are bad for you, that your family and friends are toxic and want to stop you from being creative, that distractions are everywhere and you should closet yourself away and cut yourself off from everything and everyone. Basically, the world that this book suggests is hideous to me. I don't consider my friends and family to be a weight that drags me down or prevents me from being creative. My friends and family are quite the opposite. Spending time with them is precious to me. Now, somebody like me would read this and go, that's a load of bollocks, and ignore the kind of undertone that's in the narrative. And honestly, I don't necessarily think that that was what the author's going for, but that is the read between the lines for me. And I know there are lots of people who love this book and who seriously believe in it and promote it. So I know that this is an individual kind of opinion of it, and an individual takeaway. But yeah, what concerns me is that if you are an individual who is not in a great place personally or mentally, that you can do a lot of damage by reading this book and following some of the advice in it, because what you might start to do, or I can certainly imagine people starting to cut themselves off from friends and family, being very selfish and driving people away because of that. And then ultimately you might very well end up miserable because you've cut yourself off from your entire support network, or pissed everyone off, basically. So I do not recommend this book. This book isn't even going to go to a charity shop. This book is going to get probably torn up and used in crafting or something like that, because I don't want anybody else to have a copy of this book. I don't want a copy of it on my shelf either. I mean, I truly actually detest this book because I feel like actually it could be really destructive. So there you go. Don't read The Artist's Way. Anything that you could possibly learn from it, or the most important takeaways that you can possibly learn from it, you can find online. Journaling, 3 sides of A4 or A5 or whatever every morning, stream of consciousness, to understand what's going on inside your head and free your brain of all of the stupid crap that tends to get stuck in there. Artist dates, go and spend some quality time with your friends or family or on your own, whatever you feel that you need in order to stimulate creativity. Go and do some things. You know, my husband doesn't necessarily like doing the same things I do. I like going to Disneyland with my friends, and I like going to museums and libraries and stately homes and spending time in nature, and sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. I fit it in when I can, and if I do it on my own or if I do it with a group of friends, it makes no difference to me, as long as I am enriching the creative part of myself, basically. I don't need this book to do that, and neither do you. So that is all that I have for you then for this wrap up. Tune in again next week. I can't remember what it is that I have planned for you for next week. I think it might be a tag, but stick around and check that out. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate the time that you spend on my channel. Please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, or a dislike if you didn't. And obviously leave me a comment below and let me know what you thought. It really helps me out when you do that. It would be great as well if you have enjoyed the video, if you would subscribe and stay tuned for next week. Ring the bell to receive notifications so that you're not relying on YouTube to tell you. And yeah, thanks again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I'm so hot. I'm very pink and sweaty. Maybe I'll zoom out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Don't think you need to see quite so much on my face. Okay, plus as well now I can lean forward. Maybe not too far. I'm just going to remind myself of the actual characters in this story. In fact, it might just be better to Google Dreamer Peter James. There we go.